Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Richard French Live. Tonight, we're going to focus our entire program on one single issue, marijuana. And what a long way we have come since the days of peace, love, and dope from the 1960s. Marijuana usage, it may be more widespread than ever, and it's certainly becoming more socially acceptable than at any point since it was outlawed in the U.S. back in 1937. In fact, according to 2008 numbers released by the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, more than 102 million Americans have reported using marijuana at least once in their lifetime. That's 41% of the U.S. population. What's more, 10% of all Americans admitted in the survey as having used marijuana once in the past year, 6% in just the past month. And that is limiting the review to just the illegal use of the drug. More and more states, they're liberalizing their pot laws, particularly when it comes to medicinal marijuana. And it leads to an unexpected irony. You ask most people in the U.S. to name the most liberal city in the country. Some might say San Francisco, others maybe they'll say Los Angeles. But more often than not, the city most often mentioned as the den of liberal attitudes and liberal laws, you guessed it, the Big Apple. In fact, the city is seen as being so liberal, in some parts of the U.S., you just say New York, and you'll be looked at as, well, something akin to cursing. And yet, when it comes to marijuana, that label, it couldn't be more wrong. Why? Well, because last year, and in fact every year since more than a decade, more people have been arrested in New York than in any city in America. And that's just one of the many surprises we found while studying this issue. And for more now on that and other results of an RNN investigation, I want to bring in the man who's been following this subject for us, Andrew Whitman.
Well, Rich, marijuana use is not just on the rise in the numbers you highlighted, but also across popular culture. More and more movies, television shows, even song lyrics speak openly of marijuana use. How mainstream has marijuana gotten? The star of one of those TV shows I referenced, Mary Louise Parker from the Showtime hit Weeds, was recently profiled on the cover of Fortune magazine. The story posed the question, is pot already legal? But in the 5 boroughs of New York, the answer to that question is a resounding no. At least when it comes to the thousands of people being carted off to jail and marched before judges just for possessing it.
I don't see the big issue with, having a little weed. I never saw it kill anybody.
This man, we'll call him Ziggy, is a pot smoker. He didn't want us to use his real name or show his face on television. Neither did this man we're calling Junior. But smoking pot isn't the only thing they have in common.
They just said you're under arrest for possession of marijuana.
And they are far from alone. Since 1997, New York City police have made more than 430,000 arrests for marijuana possession. Not for smoking pot, mind you, just for possessing it. Last year, that trend continued unabated. More than 40,000 people were arrested for possession. That's better than 110 people busted every single day.
There's no city in the United States and there's no city in the world that makes that many marijuana arrests. New York City is the marijuana arrest capital of the world.
And Harry Levine would know. The Queens College sociology professor has been studying the city's drug arrest numbers for years.
The New York Police Department, under 3 police chiefs and 2 mayors, has made an astonishing number of marijuana arrests in the last 12 years.
How astonishing? According to the FBI, just under 850,000 people in the entire U.S. were arrested for all marijuana violations last year. That includes arrests for possession, smoking, growing, or selling. New York arrested 40,000 people in the same 12-month period just for possession. That means about 1 out of every 20 pot-related arrests in America was a possession arrest in New York City. But hidden in those numbers is another surprise.
New York City is arresting massive numbers of young Black and Latino men for possessing, not for smoking in public, but for simply having in their pocket or belongings a small amount of marijuana.
How massive are the numbers? Since 1997, when the numbers of pot possession arrests began to swell, 86% of all the people arrested have been Black or Hispanic. 86% from a group that makes up just 53% of the city's population. Compare that to the marijuana arrest numbers for white New Yorkers. The federal government says the usage rates for whites is far higher than that of any other group. Yet in New York, just 12% of those arrested have been white, even though whites make up 35% of the city's population. And while Junior and Ziggy had not heard the numbers, They knew about the racial disparity and what it meant.
We are always easy targets as black people, Hispanics. Everybody smokes marijuana, black, white, Puerto Rican. I personally think white people smoke more marijuana than black people, if you really ask me. But, you know, this is something that's been going on for years. You know, they target us pretty much, black and Hispanics.
It's hard to look backwards and say race doesn't have anything to do with it when every day you're faced with black and Latino males who are coming through on these marijuana arrests.
Adeola Ogunkede sees that racial disparity every day. A lawyer for the Bronx Defenders, a donation-based alternate to the Public Defender's Office, Ogunkede's workload is filled with young men arrested for marijuana possession. Nearly all of them are black or Hispanic.
If there's some other motivation, if there's something else behind it, it's hard to decipher what that is when you're met with the simple fact that the majority of the people coming through are minorities.
But the irony behind those tens of thousands of arrests and countless cases that clog up criminal courts like this one in the Bronx is that for more than 30 years in New York State, low-level possession of marijuana has been decriminalized. It's supposed to be the judicial equivalent of a traffic ticket.
There were an enormous number of otherwise perfectly law-abiding people in New York, particularly young people, who were getting arrested and in many cases not only getting a criminal record but doing state prison time because they had a small bag of marijuana in their dresser drawer.
Assemblyman Richard Gottfried wrote New York's decriminalization law, which was passed in 1977.
It just struck me and a lot of other people that was really not what our criminal justice system ought to be about.
The law states that possession of less than 7/8 of an ounce of marijuana on your person or out of public view is considered a violation. How much is that? According to the website marijuana.com, enough to roll more than 50 average-sized joints. The penalty is supposed to be a ticket, not an arrest.
Because it does seem to me as a real abuse of policing. Certainly the statistics suggest a targeting of minority communities.
So then how are police able to make so many marijuana possession arrests? Turns out the distinction is a subtle one in the law. I'll use a bag of oregano to help demonstrate. Smoking it or having it out in public is a crime. Having it on your person is not. Crime, not a crime. So the challenge for police then becomes how to get their suspects to literally take it out of their pockets.